"I want you to father my child." The words hung in the air of the 42nd floor executive office like a grenade with the pin pulled. Adam King stared at the billionaire CEO sitting across from him, his mind reeling. Just 2 hours ago, he'd been a desperate paramedic begging for help to save his dying daughter. Now Amelia Gutierrez was offering him an impossible deal, his genetic material in exchange for his daughter's life. 3 days earlier, everything changed when Lily collapsed during her school's winter concert. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible true stories that will touch your heart. Adam King, 34 years old, had been working double shifts as a paramedic for Chicago Fire Department Station 51 for the past 8 years. Every paycheck went toward rent for their small Lincoln Park apartment, Lily's school supplies, and the growing mountain of medical bills from her previous hospitalizations. His wife Sarah had died from complications during childbirth, leaving him to raise Lily alone. He'd promised Sarah with her last breath that he would give their daughter everything, protect her, love her enough for both parents. Now, staring at his unconscious child surrounded by machines and monitors, that promise felt like sand slipping through his fingers. The diagnosis was devastating: severe congenital heart defect requiring immediate surgical intervention. The surgery would cost $375,000. His insurance had a lifetime maximum benefit of $200,000, already exhausted from Lily's previous treatments. He'd applied for charity care, medical loans, crowdfunding campaigns. Every door slammed shut. The hospital's financial counselor had been brutally honest during their meeting yesterday afternoon. Without payment guarantees, they couldn't schedule the surgery. Lily had been stable enough to go home, but her condition was deteriorating rapidly. Adam had spent 72 sleepless hours calling every medical foundation, every charity organization, every religious group he could find online. He'd swallowed his pride and contacted distant relatives he hadn't spoken to in years, former colleagues, even Sarah's family, who had blamed him for not being at the hospital when she died. Nothing. No one could help. The amounts they offered, 500 here, 1,000 there, were drops in an ocean of need. On Thursday morning, while Lily was having another episode of arrhythmia that left her gasping and blue-lipped, Adam made a decision born of pure desperation. He'd heard about Amelia Gutierrez through the news. The 36-year-old CEO of Gutierrez Biotech had made headlines 6 months ago when she announced a $50 million initiative to fund pediatric cardiac research. Her company specialized in developing cutting-edge medical devices, and she was known for her ruthless business tactics and her mysterious personal life. No husband, no children, no close family that the media could find. Just wealth beyond imagination, and a reputation for being absolutely merciless in boardroom negotiations. Adam tracked down the address of Gutierrez Biotech's Chicago headquarters on North Michigan Avenue. The building was a gleaming steel and glass tower that seemed to pierce the grey winter sky. He took a personal day from work, something he could barely afford, and showed up at 7 in the morning wearing his only suit, a charcoal grey outfit he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 8 years ago that now hung loose on his frame. Security stopped him in the marble lobby before he could reach the elevators. The guard, a muscular man in his 50s with kind eyes that reminded Adam of his own father, listened to his desperate explanation with growing sympathy. After 10 minutes of pleading, the guard made a phone call. Someone upstairs must have been curious about the desperate paramedic in the lobby, because 5 minutes later he was being escorted to the executive floor. The elevator opened onto the 42nd floor, revealing an office space that looked more like a modern art museum than a workplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Lake Michigan and downtown Chicago. The receptionist, an elegant woman in her 50s with silver hair and perfectly applied makeup, asked him to wait in a small conference room. He waited for 2 hours. 2 hours of pacing the conference room, checking his phone for updates from the neighbor watching Lily, rehearsing what he would say. At 9:45, the door opened. Amelia Gutierrez entered like a force of nature. She was tall, approximately 5'9", with long, straight blonde hair that fell past her shoulders like spun gold. Her eyes were in striking ice blue that seemed to catalogue every detail about him in seconds. She wore a tailored white pantsuit that probably cost more than his monthly salary, with red-soled heels that clicked authoritatively against the hardwood floor. Her features were classically beautiful, with high cheekbones, full lips painted a subtle rose, and skin that seemed to glow with health and expensive skincare. She carried herself with the absolute confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. Behind her stood Marcus Chen, her chief operating officer, a lean Asian-American man in his early 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and Victoria Walsh, her legal counsel, a severe-looking woman in her 50s with steel-grey hair pulled into a tight bun. Amelia sat down across from Adam, crossing her legs with calculated precision. She didn't offer her hand to shake. Instead, she placed a thin manila folder on the table and opened it, revealing what appeared to be a background check on him. His stomach dropped. She'd investigated him before agreeing to this meeting. "Mr. King," she began, her voice smooth and controlled with just a hint of a Boston accent from her Harvard Business School days. "You have exactly 10 minutes to tell me why I should care about your daughter's medical crisis. I receive approximately 300 charity requests per week. What makes yours special?" Adam had prepared a speech about Lily's potential, about her love for drawing and her dream of becoming a veterinarian, about how unfair it was that money determined who lived and died. But sitting across from this ice queen whose blue eyes showed no warmth, no empathy, nothing but cold calculation, the words died in his throat. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed her a video. It was from Lily's 6th birthday, just 3 months ago. In the video, Lily was sitting on their worn couch in their tiny apartment, opening the used art supply set he'd bought from a thrift store. Her face lit up with pure joy as she pulled out the colored pencils and sketch pads. "Daddy, it's perfect. Now I can draw all the animals at the zoo." She jumped into his arms, hugging him tight. "You're the best daddy in the whole world. I love you infinity times infinity." The video was only 45 seconds long. When it ended, Adam looked up at Amelia. Her expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in those ice-blue eyes, something that might have been human emotion, quickly suppressed. "My daughter is the kindest, most creative, most loving child you'll ever meet," Adam said quietly, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't control. "She volunteers to read to the younger kids at her school, even though she gets tired easily because of her heart. She draws pictures for the nurses when we have to go to the hospital because she says they work hard and deserve something pretty to look at. When her best friend's hamster died last month, Lily used her birthday money to buy her friend a new stuffed animal because she couldn't stand to see her sad." He leaned forward, his hands clasped together on the table. "I'm not asking you to care about her potential or her dreams. I'm asking you to care about her heart, not the broken one in her chest, but the beautiful one in her soul. The world needs more people like Lily, and I'll do anything, sacrifice anything, to keep her in it." Silence fell over the conference room. Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances. Amelia's perfectly manicured fingers drummed once on the manila folder, a tell she didn't seem aware of that suggested she was actually considering his request. Finally she spoke. "Mr. King, I'm going to make you an offer. But first, I need you to understand something about me." She leaned back in her chair, studying him with those penetrating blue eyes. "I don't do charity. I don't make emotional decisions. Everything I do serves a purpose, advances a goal, or fulfills a need. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" Adam nodded slowly, though ice was forming in his veins. "You want something in return. Smart man." A cold smile curved her lips. "Here's my proposal. I will pay for your daughter's surgery in full. I will ensure she receives the absolute best cardiac surgeon in the country, Dr. Elizabeth Harrington from Johns Hopkins. I will cover all hospital costs, all follow-up care, all medications for the next 5 years. Your daughter will want for nothing medically." Adam felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you, I don't know how to—" She held up one hand, silencing him. "I'm not finished. In exchange for saving your daughter's life, I require something from you, something that will ensure the continuity of my family legacy." The ice in his veins turned to permafrost. "What do you want?" Amelia Gutierrez looked at him with eyes that might have been carved from Arctic ice. "I want you to father my child." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus and Victoria showed no surprise, which meant they'd known about this insane proposal before he walked in the door. This had been planned, calculated. He was being manipulated with surgical precision, his desperation weaponized against him. "I'm 36 years old," Amelia continued in that same calm, controlled voice, as if she were discussing a business merger. "I have no interest in marriage or romantic relationships. They're messy, complicated, and serve no productive purpose in my life. However, I do want a biological child to inherit my company and carry on my family name. I've spent the last year researching potential candidates for artificial insemination, but I've found all the options unsatisfactory. They're either genetically questionable, professionally unremarkable, or personality-wise insufferable." She gestured to the manila folder. "Then you showed up in my lobby. I had my team investigate you while you waited. Adam King, 34 years old, 5'11", athletic build maintained despite working brutal hours. No genetic diseases in your family history. Bachelor's degree in emergency medical services, top of your class at Malcolm X College. 8 years as a paramedic with Chicago Fire Department, exemplary service record, 17 formal commendations for heroism. Army medic before that, honorably discharged after serving in Afghanistan. Married young to your high school sweetheart Sarah, who died during childbirth. Single father raising daughter alone. No criminal record, no substance abuse, no gambling debts. You're healthy, intelligent, brave, and demonstrably capable of selfless love. Adam felt sick. She'd dissected his entire life while he waited in this conference room, reducing him to a list of acceptable genetic and behavioral traits. He was being evaluated like breeding stock. "Furthermore," Amelia continued, "you're desperate. You will agree to my terms because you have no other option. Your daughter has 48 hours, you said. She'll be dead by Sunday morning if you walk out of this room." The casual cruelty of that statement, delivered in her calm, professional tone, hit him like a physical blow. But she was right. God help him, she was absolutely right. He would do anything, become anything, sacrifice anything to save Lily. "What exactly are your terms?" he asked, his voice hollow. Amelia pulled a document from the folder and slid it across the table. "You will provide genetic material for artificial insemination. Once I'm confirmed pregnant, you will sign away all parental rights to the child. You will have no legal claim, no visitation rights, no contact whatsoever. The child will be mine alone. In exchange, I pay for Lily's surgery and ongoing medical care." Adam stared at the document. It was already prepared, professionally formatted, with blank spaces for signatures. She'd been so certain he would agree that she'd had her lawyers draft this before the meeting. The level of premeditation, of cold calculation, made him feel like an insect being studied under glass. "And if I refuse?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Then you walk out of here with nothing, and your daughter dies." No emotion, no sympathy, just cold, hard fact, delivered like a business transaction. "Mr. King, I'm offering you a trade, your genetic material and your silence for your daughter's life. It's the most generous offer you're going to receive. The clock is ticking." He thought about Lily, about her smile, about the way she hugged him every morning before school, about the drawings she made that covered every inch of their refrigerator. He thought about Sarah's last words. "Promise me you'll give her everything." He'd failed at giving Lily a mother. He'd failed at providing financial security. He couldn't fail at keeping her alive. Adam picked up the pen that Amelia slid across the table. His hand was shaking. "I need a guarantee, in writing, that Lily's medical care is covered completely, no matter what happens with the pregnancy." For the first time, something like respect flickered across Amelia's face. "Marcus, add the addendum we discussed." Marcus produced another document, this one from Gutierrez Biotech's charitable foundation, guaranteeing complete medical coverage for Lily King, including surgery, hospitalization, medications and follow-up care for 10 years, regardless of the outcome of any separate agreement between Adam King and Amelia Gutierrez. It was ironclad. He could tell, even without being a lawyer, that this document was unbreakable. He signed both documents. His signature looked like it belonged to someone else, someone who wasn't selling his future child for medical bills. Victoria Walsh notarized them immediately, efficient and practiced. Within 5 minutes, everything was done. The deal was made. Amelia stood up, smoothing her white pantsuit. "Dr. Harrington will be contacted within the hour. She'll fly in from Baltimore tonight. Your daughter will have surgery tomorrow morning at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I'll cover the costs of having her transferred there immediately. My people will handle all the logistics." She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him. For just a moment, something that might have been regret or sadness, or perhaps just indigestion, flickered across her perfect features. "Mr. King, I know what you think of me right now. But understand this. I'm giving your daughter life, and I'm getting the legacy I need to secure my family's future. This is a fair transaction. Try not to hate me for being honest about it." Then she was gone, leaving him alone in the conference room with documents that had just signed away a child he'd never meet, traded for the life of a daughter he couldn't live without. Adam sat there for 10 minutes, staring at his shaking hands, wondering if Sarah could see him from wherever she was, wondering if she would understand, or if she would be disgusted by what he'd just done. His phone rang. The hospital. Lily was being transferred to Northwestern within the hour. A Dr. Harrington was already reviewing her case. Surgery was scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Everything was happening exactly as Amelia had promised. Efficient, professional, heartless. That night, Adam sat beside Lily's hospital bed at Northwestern, holding her tiny hand while she slept, sedated for tomorrow's surgery. She looked so small, so fragile, surrounded by machines and monitors. He thought about the child he'd just agreed to create, a child who would grow up with every material advantage but without a father. Would that child look like Lily? Would they have Sarah's smile or his stubborn chin? Would they wonder about the man who gave them life but abandoned them before birth? He pushed those thoughts away. He couldn't afford guilt or second thoughts. Lily was alive. That was all that mattered. Everything else was just the price of salvation. The next morning, Dr. Elizabeth Harrington arrived at 5:30 a.m., exactly 30 minutes before surgery. She was in her early 50s, with sharp grey eyes and the confident bearing of someone at the absolute top of their profession. She reviewed Lily's case one final time, then looked at Adam with professional kindness that was somehow easier to bear than Amelia's cold calculation. "Mr. King, your daughter's condition is severe, but I've performed this surgery 214 times with a 97% success rate. She's young, which works in her favor. Her heart has fight left in it. I'm going to fix her." It wasn't a promise, because doctors couldn't promise outcomes, but it was as close as he was going to get. They wheeled Lily into surgery at 6 a.m. exactly. Adam sat in the surgical waiting room, surrounded by other desperate families, all of them clinging to hope and faith and whatever else kept humans sane when the people they loved were being cut open by strangers. The surgery would take 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting, of imagining every possible complication, of bargaining with God and the universe and anything that might be listening. At 8:30 a.m., Amelia Gutierrez walked into the waiting room. She was dressed more casually today, in designer jeans and a cream cashmere sweater that probably cost more than his car. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked younger, more human, though her blue eyes still held that calculating intelligence. She sat down beside him without asking permission. "Dr. Harrington sent me a text update. Lily's doing well so far. They're midway through the repair." Adam didn't know what to say. Why was she here? Their transaction was complete. She had no reason to be sitting in a hospital waiting room when she could be in her penthouse office making millions. As if reading his mind, Amelia said, "I don't usually do this, follow up personally, but I wanted to see this through." She was quiet for a moment, staring at the waiting room television playing some morning talk show on mute. "My mother died when I was 8. Brain aneurysm. No warning. One morning she was making breakfast. The next she was on the floor, dead before the ambulance arrived." Adam turned to look at her, surprised by this unexpected glimpse of humanity. Amelia continued staring at the television, her expression carefully neutral. "My father threw himself into work afterward, building the company, making money, creating legacy. He remarried twice, both times to women who wanted his money, not his heart. He died when I was 25, heart attack, stress." She finally looked at Adam, and for just a moment, he saw past the Ice Queen exterior to the 8-year-old girl who had lost her mother, the young woman who had lost her father, the person who had learned to armor herself in wealth and control because it was the only shield against a world that took people away without warning. "I don't believe in love or family, or any of that fairy tale nonsense," Amelia said quietly. "But I do believe in legacy, in leaving something behind that proves you existed, that you mattered. That's what I'm building. That's what I need your child for. Not to love or raise in some Pinterest-perfect family fantasy, but to ensure that everything I've created outlives me." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," Adam said, and he meant it. Here was a woman with more money than God, more power than most people could imagine, and she was fundamentally alone. She'd built walls so high that nothing could hurt her, but nothing could reach her either. Amelia's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Perhaps, but it's honest. I'd rather be honest and sad than deluded and disappointed." They sat in silence after that. Two people from completely different worlds, brought together by desperation and calculation, waiting for a little girl to survive surgery. At 11:45 a.m., Dr. Harrington emerged from the surgical suite, still in her scrubs, a tired but genuine smile on her face. "Mr. King, Lily did beautifully. We repaired the defect, reinforced the damaged tissue, and her heart is beating strong and steady. She'll be in ICU for 24 hours for monitoring, but barring any unforeseen complications, she should make a full recovery. You can see her in about 30 minutes once she's settled in recovery." Adam felt his knees go weak with relief. He sat down hard in the waiting room chair, pressing his palms against his eyes to stop the tears. Lily was alive. Lily was going to be okay. Everything else, all the darkness and moral compromise and impossible choices, all of it was worth this moment. He felt a hand on his shoulder. Amelia was standing beside him, and her eyes were suspiciously bright, though no tears fell. "Congratulations, Mr. King. Your daughter is going to live." She pulled a business card from her pocket and pressed it into his hand. "Call this number when you're ready to fulfill your end of our agreement. My fertility specialist will handle everything with complete discretion and professionalism. You'll provide a sample at the clinic, sign the final paperwork, and then you'll never hear from me again." She walked away without waiting for a response, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor, leaving him alone in the waiting room with a business card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Adam looked down at it. Dr. Jennifer Morrison, reproductive endocrinology, with an address in downtown Chicago. The card was simple, elegant, expensive. Just like everything else in Amelia Gutierrez's carefully controlled world. 2 weeks later, after Lily had been released from the hospital and was recovering beautifully at home, sleeping in her own bed surrounded by her stuffed animals and drawings, Adam made the call. He met Dr. Morrison at her clinic, a discreet office in a medical building that catered to wealthy clients seeking privacy. The process was clinical, professional, completely devoid of anything resembling human warmth. He provided the sample, signed additional paperwork confirming his complete relinquishment of parental rights, and left feeling like he'd just sold a piece of his soul. 3 weeks after that, Amelia's assistant called to inform him that the insemination had been successful. Amelia Gutierrez was pregnant. The news hit him like a physical blow. There was a child now, a collection of cells dividing and growing, half his genetic material, half hers. A child he would never know, never hold, never love. He thought about Lily, about how much joy she brought to his life, despite all the hardship, and his heart broke for the child who would grow up with everything money could buy, but without a father's love. He tried to move on with his life. Lily recovered completely, amazing her doctors with her resilience. She returned to school, returned to her art, returned to being the bright, joyful child he'd almost lost. He went back to work at Station 51, saving lives, making a difference in small ways. He told no one about his deal with Amelia Gutierrez. It was a secret he carried alone, a weight that grew heavier with each passing month. 7 months into Amelia's pregnancy, on a cold Tuesday evening in March, Adam was working the evening shift when a call came in. Multi-vehicle accident on the Kennedy Expressway, multiple casualties, all units respond. He grabbed his gear and jumped into the ambulance with his partner Rodriguez, sirens wailing as they raced toward the scene. The accident was catastrophic. A semi-truck had jackknifed on black ice, triggering a chain reaction involving 15 vehicles. Cars were crumpled like tin cans, glass and metal scattered across 4 lanes of highway. Adam and Rodriguez went to work immediately, triaging victims, providing emergency care, coordinating with other first responders. He was treating a woman with a compound fracture when he heard someone calling for help from a black Mercedes that was crushed against the concrete barrier. The voice was familiar. He ran toward the car, and his blood turned to ice. Behind the cracked glass, barely conscious and bleeding from a head wound, was Amelia Gutierrez. Her blonde hair was matted with blood, her face pale with shock, but it was unmistakably her. And she was 7 months pregnant, her belly pressed against the deployed airbag. "Amelia!" He wrenched the door open with a crowbar, ignoring the groaning metal. She turned her head slightly, her ice-blue eyes struggling to focus on his face. "Adam?" Her voice was weak, confused. "What are you—" She gasped in pain, one hand going to her belly. The baby. Oh God, the baby! He did a rapid assessment. Head laceration, possible concussion, airbag deployment suggesting significant impact, and most critically, she was 7 months pregnant and showing signs of abdominal trauma. "Rodriguez, I need a backboard over here now. Pregnant patient, possible placental abruption." They worked with practiced efficiency, carefully extracting her from the wreckage, immobilizing her spine, starting IV fluids. Amelia's eyes stayed locked on Adam's face the whole time, and he saw something there he'd never seen before. Fear. Raw, uncontrolled, human fear. "My baby," she whispered as they loaded her into the ambulance. "Adam, save my baby, please." He held her hand, feeling her grip tighten with each contraction. She was going into premature labor, stress induced by the accident. "We're taking you to Northwestern. We'll get you to OB. Your baby is going to be fine." He said it with authority he didn't feel, because that's what paramedics did. They provided hope in hopeless situations. During the ambulance ride, Amelia's contractions intensified. She was actively laboring, 7 months along, in severe distress. Adam monitored her vital signs while coordinating with the hospital. Dr. Morrison was meeting them in the emergency room with the OB team on standby. "Adam!" Amelia gasped between contractions, her Ice Queen composure completely shattered. "I'm sorry for what I did, for treating you like a transaction. I'm so sorry." He squeezed her hand. "Don't talk. Save your strength. Focus on breathing." "No, I need to say this." Tears were streaming down her face, cutting clean tracks through the blood. "I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I could control everything, plan everything, buy everything, but I can't control this. I'm terrified." Her blue eyes, so cold and calculating in that conference room 7 months ago, were now vulnerable and desperate. "What if I lose the baby? What if all of this was for nothing?" Adam felt something crack in his chest. She wasn't the Ice Queen right now. She was just a terrified woman facing the possibility of losing her child. The same terror he'd felt when Lily lay in that hospital bed. The same desperate bargaining with fate that made humans do impossible things. "You're not going to lose the baby," he said firmly. "You're strong, you're a fighter, and you have the best medical care in the city waiting for you. Your baby is going to be fine." They arrived at Northwestern in 12 minutes flat, Rodriguez driving like his life depended on it. The OB team was waiting, Dr. Morrison leading them with calm, professional authority. They whisked Amelia into surgery for an emergency C-section. The baby needed to come out now, 7 months or not, if there was any chance of survival. Adam stood in the hallway outside the surgical suite, covered in her blood, his hands still shaking from adrenaline, and realized with crystal clarity that everything had changed. That baby wasn't just a transaction anymore. That baby was his child, his son or daughter, fighting for life right now, 7 months old, and facing the world 2 months too early, because fate had decided to intervene in Amelia Gutierrez's carefully laid plans. 45 minutes later, Dr. Morrison emerged from surgery, her mask pulled down, exhaustion evident on her face. "Mr. King, Ms. Gutierrez is stable. She'll make a full recovery. And you have a daughter, 3 pounds, 2 ounces. She's in the NICU, on a ventilator, but she's alive and fighting." A daughter. He had a daughter, a second daughter he'd never planned to know, never planned to hold. A daughter who was fighting for life in the NICU because he'd provided half her genetic code in exchange for Lily's surgery 7 months ago. "Can I see her?" The words came out before he could stop them. Dr. Morrison's expression was complex. "Mr. King, you signed away parental rights. Legally, you have no standing." "I know what I signed. But I just pulled her mother from a car wreck and delivered her to this hospital in active labor. I need to see that she's okay. Please." Dr. Morrison studied him for a long moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. But understand, This doesn't change the legal situation. She led him to the NICU, through the glass window, in an incubator surrounded by monitors and tubes and all the machinery of modern medicine keeping premature babies alive, was the smallest human being he'd ever seen. She had a shock of dark hair, his hair, and even through the ventilator tube and monitors, he could see that she had Amelia's facial structure. The perfect combination of both of them, fighting for every breath. He stood there staring at his daughter, this child he'd never expected to feel anything for, and felt his heart break wide open. This was his little girl, his flesh and blood. And he'd signed her away before she'd even existed, traded her for Lily's life in a deal that had seemed so clear-cut 7 months ago, but now felt like the worst mistake of his life. 2 days later, Amelia regained full consciousness. She'd had a subdural hematoma from the accident that required surgical intervention, but the procedure was successful. When she was strong enough to be wheeled to the NICU to see her daughter, Adam was already there, standing outside the unit, unable to leave, unable to walk away from the tiny fighter in the incubator. Amelia's wheelchair stopped beside him. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by hospital gowns and bandages, her blonde hair dull and tangled, her face pale without makeup. But her blue eyes were clear, and when she looked at her daughter through the glass, something transformed in her expression. Something Adam had never seen before. Wonder, love, absolute, terrifying, overwhelming love. "I named her Grace," Amelia said softly. "Grace Elizabeth, after my mother and Dr. Harrington." She was quiet for a moment, watching the baby's tiny chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance. "I've spent 2 days lying in that hospital bed, pumping breast milk for a daughter I can't hold, thinking about what you said in the waiting room, about how sad my life is." Adam started to apologize, but she held up one hand, silencing him. "You were right. I've been sad and alone and so convinced that control was the same thing as safety. But looking at Grace, knowing how close I came to losing her, to losing everything." Her voice broke. "I've been doing this all wrong." She looked up at Adam, and her eyes were filled with tears. "You saved us, me and Grace. If you hadn't been on that ambulance, if you hadn't fought so hard to get us here, we'd both be dead. And I realized something. Grace needs more than just my money and my legacy. She needs a father, a real father, someone who will love her unconditionally, protect her, give her everything that really matters." Adam felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "Amelia, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that contract we signed was garbage. I'm saying I was wrong to think I could raise a child alone, that love was a weakness instead of strength. I'm saying—" She took a shaking breath. "I'm saying I want to renegotiate. If you want to be Grace's father, if you want to be part of her life, I won't stop you. I'll have my lawyers tear up that contract today." He couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was everything he'd tried not to want, everything he'd forced himself not to dream about because it was impossible. "I have Lily. I'm a single father already, working brutal hours, barely making ends meet. You saved my daughter's life twice. Once by agreeing to give her life in the first place, and once by pulling us out of that wreck. You've proven you're exactly the kind of father Grace needs." Amelia reached out and took his hand, and her grip was surprisingly strong. "I'm not proposing marriage or romance or anything complicated. I'm proposing co-parenting. You and Lily can stay in your apartment or move to something bigger that I'll help finance. We'll set up a schedule so Grace knows both of us. We'll figure out the logistics, but she'll have a father who loves her, and that's what matters." Adam looked at his daughter through the NICU window, this tiny miracle fighting for every breath. And then he thought about Lily at home, the daughter he'd almost lost, the daughter he'd traded everything to save. He thought about how Lily always asked about siblings, about how she drew pictures of families with multiple children because that's what she wished they could be. "Lily's been begging for a baby sister since she could talk," he said quietly. "She's going to lose her mind when she finds out." Amelia laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy that transformed her face. "Then I guess you better bring her to meet Grace as soon as the NICU allows sibling visits." And that's how Adam King, 34-year-old paramedic and single father, ended up with 2 daughters, a billionaire co-parent, and a life that bore no resemblance to anything he'd planned, but was somehow exactly what he needed. Over the following weeks, as Grace grew stronger in the NICU, and Amelia recovered from her injuries, they worked out the details. Amelia's lawyers revised all the paperwork, establishing Adam as Grace's legal father with full rights and responsibilities. They set up a trust fund for Grace's future and for Lily's continued medical care. They agreed on a co-parenting schedule that accommodated Adam's shift work and Amelia's business travel. When Lily finally met Grace, after Grace had spent 6 weeks in the NICU and was finally strong enough to leave the hospital, the 7-year-old girl's face lit up with pure joy. "She's so tiny. Can I hold her? Will she know I'm her big sister?" Lily's enthusiasm was infectious, melting Amelia's remaining Ice Queen exterior faster than anything else could have. Amelia, watching Lily cradle Grace with the careful reverence of a child holding something precious, felt tears prick her eyes. "She's lucky to have you as a big sister, Lily." The first few months were chaotic in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Adam and Amelia navigated co-parenting with all the awkwardness of 2 people who barely knew each other trying to raise an infant together while processing their own complicated feelings about how they'd gotten here. The disagreements started small. Amelia wanted to hire a night nurse, someone professionally trained to handle the 3 a.m. feedings and diaper changes. Adam insisted on doing it himself, arguing that babies needed their parents, not paid professionals, during those vulnerable early hours. They compromised. The night nurse came 3 nights a week, giving Adam a chance to catch up on sleep before his shifts at Station 51. Then there was the organic food debate. Amelia had her assistant purchase $500 worth of organic baby formula, special probiotic supplements, and purified water systems. Adam stared at the delivery with something between amusement and horror. "Amelia, regular formula is fine. Millions of babies grow up perfectly healthy on regular formula." "But why settle for fine when we can give her the best?" Amelia countered, genuinely confused by his resistance. "I have the resources to provide optimal nutrition. Why wouldn't I use them?" "Because babies don't need optimal everything," Adam explained patiently. "They need love and consistency and presence. The fancy formula doesn't matter if we're not here, if we're not engaged, if we're just throwing money at parenting instead of actually doing it." These philosophical differences surfaced constantly. Amelia wanted to enroll Grace in a waiting list for an elite preschool that cost $40,000 a year. Adam wanted her to go to the public school in their neighborhood where Lily had gone, where real kids from real families learned together. Amelia bought designer baby clothes from boutiques in Milan. Adam bought practical onesies from Target that could survive multiple washing machine cycles. Amelia had a professional photographer come monthly to document Grace's development. Adam took blurry iPhone photos that captured genuine moments instead of staged perfection. But the real friction came from deeper places. Amelia was terrified of doing motherhood wrong, of failing at the one thing she couldn't control or delegate or buy her way through. She read every parenting book published in the last decade, attended seminars on infant development, consulted with pediatric psychologists about optimal bonding techniques. She approached motherhood the way she approached business, with research, planning, and determination to excel. Adam, who had learned parenting through trial and error and pure love with Lily, found Amelia's approach simultaneously endearing and exhausting. "You're overthinking it," he told her one night when she was stressed about whether Grace's babbling sounds indicated advanced language development or normal progression. "Babies develop at their own pace. You can't optimize them like a business model." "But what if I'm doing something wrong?" Amelia's voice cracked, revealing the fear beneath her controlled exterior. "What if she ends up messed up because I didn't know the right techniques or read the right books or—" "Amelia." Adam took her hands, forcing her to look at him. "Grace is going to be fine. More than fine. She has two parents who love her desperately. She has a big sister who thinks she's the center of the universe. She has every medical advantage, every material comfort, and most importantly, she has presence. We show up. We're here. That's what matters." These moments of vulnerability, when Amelia's Ice Queen mask completely dissolved and she showed him the terrified woman underneath who just wanted to be a good mother, were when Adam felt his carefully constructed emotional walls starting to crumble. This wasn't the calculating billionaire who had offered him a cold transaction. This was a woman learning to love, learning to be human, learning that control was an illusion and vulnerability was strength. Meanwhile, Lily was thriving in her role as big sister, but she was also navigating complicated feelings about the new family structure. One evening, about 4 months after Grace came home from the hospital, Adam found Lily sitting on her bed looking at old photos of Sarah. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, sitting beside her. "What are you thinking about?" Lily was quiet for a long moment, tracing her fingers over a photo of Sarah holding newborn Lily. "Do you think Mommy would be mad that Amelia is here, that we have Grace?" Adam's heart broke. He pulled Lily into his lap, holding her close. "Your mommy loved you more than anything in the world. She wanted you to be happy and healthy and surrounded by people who love you. I think she'd be glad that you have Amelia and Grace, that our family is bigger now." "But Amelia isn't my mommy," Lily said, her voice small. "I don't want to forget Mommy." "You'll never forget her," Adam promised. "Your mommy will always be your mommy. Always. Amelia isn't trying to replace her. She's just someone new who loves you and wants to be part of your life. You can love both of them. Love doesn't run out, Lily. It just grows." That conversation led to a longer talk between Adam and Amelia about how to handle Lily's complicated feelings. They decided to create a memory book about Sarah, filled with photos and stories, something Lily could look at whenever she wanted. Amelia, surprisingly, was the one who suggested they visit Sarah's grave together, all 4 of them. It was a sunny Saturday morning in May, when they stood at Sarah's gravestone in Oakwoods Cemetery. Adam held Grace, who was babbling happily, unaware of the significance of the moment. Lily held Amelia's hand, which she'd been doing more and more frequently, a sign that she was beginning to accept Amelia into their family. Amelia knelt down beside Lily in front of Sarah's grave. "Sarah," she said quietly, speaking to the stone as if speaking to the woman herself. "I need you to know that I'm going to do everything I can to honor your daughter. I'll never try to replace you. I'll never ask Lily to forget you. But I promise I'll love her and protect her and be there for her." "Just like you would want." Lily burst into tears, throwing her arms around Amelia. Adam, watching this moment, felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This woman, this billionaire CEO who had started as a cold transaction, had just promised his dead wife to love their daughter. The walls around his heart didn't just crumble, they completely dissolved. But it wasn't all emotional breakthrough moments. There were also disasters, like the time Amelia's mother instinct kicked in at 2 a.m., and she drove to Adam's apartment in a panic because Grace had a slight fever, and she was convinced it was meningitis. Adam, groggy and patient, took Grace's temperature, confirmed it was just 99.2, and explained that babies get minor fevers from teething or minor viruses all the time. "I thought she was dying," Amelia admitted, sitting on Adam's couch at 2:30 in the morning, holding a perfectly content Grace, who was already cooled down with some infant Tylenol. "Welcome to parenting," Adam said with a tired smile. "Every fever feels like the end of the world. Every cough sounds like pneumonia. Every bump on the head seems like a concussion. It gets easier. Eventually you learn to tell the difference between real emergencies and normal kid stuff." Or the time Adam took Grace to a routine pediatrician appointment and mentioned that Grace had been pulling at her left ear. The pediatrician diagnosed a mild ear infection and prescribed antibiotics. When Adam told Amelia, she completely spiraled, convinced that she'd missed the signs, that she was a terrible mother, that Grace would develop hearing problems from delayed treatment. Adam found her at the penthouse, surrounded by medical journals about pediatric ear infections, her laptop open to 17 different tabs about long-term effects of untreated otitis media. He gently closed the laptop and pulled her into his arms. "Grace is fine. She has a minor ear infection that's already being treated. This is normal. Kids get ear infections. It doesn't mean you failed as a mother. It means she's a normal baby with a normal immune system learning to fight off normal childhood illnesses." Amelia buried her face in his chest, and he felt her shaking. "I can't lose her, Adam. I can't. After everything, after almost losing her in the accident, after watching her fight in the NICU, I can't." "You're not going to lose her," he promised, holding her tight. "She's strong. She's healthy. She's here and she's thriving. You have to let go of the fear, Amelia. You can't parent from a place of terror." These moments, raw and real and messy, were when they truly became partners. Not co-parents managing logistics, but partners navigating the terrifying, beautiful chaos of raising children together. But through it all, Grace thrived. She grew stronger, healthier, hitting all her developmental milestones with the determination of a child who had fought for life from day one. Her laugh was infectious, her curiosity endless, her joy in simple things, a constant reminder that the best things in life couldn't be bought or planned. Lily took her role as big sister seriously. She read to Grace every evening, showing her picture books and explaining in great detail what each animal was and why they were important. She drew pictures for Grace's nursery at both the apartment and at Amelia's penthouse. She appointed herself Grace's official protector, informing anyone who would listen that her baby sister was the most special baby in the entire world. Somewhere in the chaos of 2 a.m., feedings and diaper changes and coordinating schedules, something unexpected happened. Adam and Amelia became friends, real friends, not just co-parents tolerating each other for their daughter's sake. It started with small things. Amelia discovered that Adam made terrible coffee, so she showed up at his apartment one morning with an espresso machine and fresh beans from a local roaster. "Life's too short for bad coffee," she announced, installing it in his tiny kitchen like she was performing surgery. Adam discovered that Amelia had never actually learned to cook, surviving on takeout and catered meals her entire adult life. So he taught her how to make simple meals, standing in her massive penthouse kitchen that had probably never been used, walking her through scrambled eggs and grilled cheese sandwiches. "This is life-changing," she said seriously, taking a bite of her first home-cooked meal. "Why did no one tell me cooking was this satisfying?" "Because you could always just hire someone to do it," Adam teased. "Welcome to how normal people live." They discovered they made each other laugh. Adam's dry humor about the absurdities of his paramedic work paired perfectly with Amelia's sharp wit about corporate politics. They could talk for hours about everything from philosophy to politics to the ridiculous reality TV shows they both secretly watched. Amelia admitted she was obsessed with cooking competitions despite not being able to cook. Adam confessed he'd binge-watched an entire season of a teen drama because Lily had gotten him hooked. They started having Friday night dinners together, all four of them, at whichever residence wasn't hosting Grace that week. Lily would help cook, Grace would make cheerful chaos in her high chair, and Adam and Amelia would navigate the domestic routine with increasing comfort. These evenings felt like family in a way that surprised both of them, but there were also moments that crackled with tension. Neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Like the time Adam showed up to pick up Grace and found Amelia fresh from the shower, hair damp, wearing yoga pants and an oversized northwestern sweatshirt, no makeup, looking younger and more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them before they both quickly looked away. Or the time Amelia came to watch Adam's company's softball game, sitting in the bleachers next to Rodriguez's wife, cheering when Adam hit a double. Afterward, sweaty and laughing, Adam had picked up Grace and spun her around, and Amelia had looked at him with something that definitely wasn't just co-parenting appreciation. They didn't talk about these moments. They both had too much at stake, too much to lose if they acknowledged the attraction building between them, and it ended badly. So they pushed it down, focused on Grace and Lily, maintained careful boundaries. Until the night everything changed. It was Grace's 8-month well-baby checkup, a routine appointment that Adam attended alone because Amelia was in New York for a board meeting. The pediatrician found nothing concerning, but mentioned that Grace's development was remarkable considering her premature start. "She's thriving," Dr. Patterson said warmly. "Whatever you and her mother are doing, keep doing it." Adam called Amelia immediately after the appointment to share the good news. She answered on the second ring, and he could hear airport announcements in the background. "Adam, is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. Dr. Patterson says Grace is doing amazing. All her milestones are on track or ahead. She's thriving." The relief in Amelia's voice was palpable. "Thank God. I've been worried all day that something would be wrong and I wasn't there." "She's perfect, Amelia. You're doing a great job. We're doing a great job." There was a pause. Then Amelia said quietly, "I miss you, both of you. I hate being away." Those 3 words, "I miss you," hung in the air between them. They weren't talking about Grace anymore. They both knew it. "We miss you too," Adam admitted. "When are you back?" "Flight lands at 9 tonight. Too late to see Grace before bedtime." "Come over anyway," Adam said impulsively. "I'll be up. We can talk, have a glass of wine, celebrate the good checkup." Another pause. Then, "Okay, I'll come over." Amelia arrived at Adam's apartment at 9:45, still in her business suit from the board meeting, rolling a small carry-on behind her. She looked exhausted and somehow more beautiful than ever, her blonde hair slightly mussed from travel, her ice-blue eyes warm when she saw him. Adam had put Lily and Grace to bed hours ago. The apartment was quiet, just the soft glow of lamps and the city lights through the windows. He'd opened a bottle of wine, something mid-range that Amelia would probably consider cheap, but drink anyway, because she'd learned not to be snobby about the small things. They sat on his worn couch, the same couch where he'd held Lily through nightmares and read her stories and worried about medical bills. Now he was sitting here with a billionaire who had somehow become his best friend, his co-parent, and something more that neither of them had been brave enough to name. "How was New York?" he asked, handing her a glass of wine. "Exhausting. The board wanted to discuss expanding into European markets, which means months of negotiations and travel. I realized sitting in that conference room that I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be here, at Grace's checkup, being a mother instead of a CEO. She took a sip of wine, then smiled. "This is terrible wine, by the way." "I know," Adam grinned. "But you're drinking it anyway." "I am, because you poured it, and somehow that makes it taste better." The moment stretched between them, charged with everything they'd been avoiding. Amelia set down her wineglass and turned to face him fully. "Adam, I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond." His heart started hammering. "Okay, I've spent the last 8 months trying to convince myself that what I feel for you is gratitude or friendship or just co-parenting attachment. But I was on that plane tonight, flying back to Chicago, and all I could think about was getting home to you. Not just to Grace, to you. And I realized I've been lying to myself because I'm terrified." She took a shaking breath. "I'm terrified because I don't do relationships. I don't do vulnerability. I don't do emotions, except you've made me feel all of those things, and I don't know how to handle it. Every logical part of my brain says this is a terrible idea, that mixing romance with co-parenting is asking for disaster. But my heart..." Her voice broke. "My heart doesn't care about logic anymore." Adam stared at her. This woman who had been an ice queen, who had offered him a cold transaction, who had slowly and beautifully melted into someone real and vulnerable and human. "Amelia," he said softly, "I'm terrified too." Amelia learned to relax her need for control, letting Grace be messy and chaotic, and perfectly imperfect. Adam learned that strength and vulnerability weren't opposites, that asking for help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. Grace's first birthday party was held at Amelia's penthouse, a beautiful space that had been child-proofed within an inch of its life. Lily had helped plan every detail, insisting on a zoo animal theme because Grace loved the stuffed giraffe Adam had bought her. The guest list was small. Just Adam and Lily, Amelia and Marcus and Victoria, Dr. Morrison, Dr. Harrington, and Rodriguez and his family. As they sang Happy Birthday and Grace smashed her cake with the joyful destruction only a 1-year-old could achieve, Adam caught Amelia's eye across the table. She was smiling, genuine and unguarded, watching their daughter with absolute love. She looked so different from the Ice Queen who had sat across from him in that conference room 18 months ago, calculating and cold, offering him an impossible deal. Later, after the guests had left and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch cuddling Grace, Adam and Amelia stood at the penthouse windows, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline. "I've been thinking," Amelia said quietly, not looking at him, "about what you said that day in the hospital, about how sad my life was. Amelia, I'm sorry." "No, let me finish." She turned to face him, her blue eyes warm in the soft lighting. "You were right. My life was sad. I was sad. I'd built walls so high that nothing could touch me, but nothing could reach me either. I thought I had everything figured out, thought I could control everything, buy everything, plan everything. But Grace..." She looked over at their daughter, sleeping peacefully in Lily's protective embrace. "Grace taught me that the best things in life are the ones you can't control or plan or buy. They're messy and terrifying and completely worth it." She took a breath, gathering courage. "Adam, I know we started this as a transaction, then it became co-parenting, then friendship. But somewhere along the way it became more for me. At least, I hope it did for you too." Adam's heart was hammering. He'd been fighting these feelings for months, telling himself it was gratitude or friendship or proximity, anything but love. Because loving Amelia Gutierrez felt like setting himself up for heartbreak. "I'm a paramedic who lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park," he said quietly. "You're a billionaire CEO who runs a Fortune 500 company. We're from different worlds." "So what?" Amelia stepped closer, her blue eyes fierce. "I don't care about different worlds. I care about the world we've built together. You, me, Lily, and Grace. That's the only world that matters." She reached up and cupped his face in her hands. "Adam King, I'm not good at this feeling stuff. I'm probably going to screw this up in 1,000 different ways, but I'm asking you to give me a chance. Give us a chance, not as co-parents or friends, but as partners, as a family, as people who love each other despite how completely unlikely and illogical it is. Adam looked into her eyes, seeing vulnerability and hope and fear all mixed together, and realized that she was just as terrified as he was. The Ice Queen was gone completely, melted away by love and motherhood and the realization that control was an illusion. "I've been in love with you for months," he admitted, "but I didn't think someone like you could ever love someone like me. Someone like you saved my life and gave me the greatest gift I'll ever receive," Amelia said fiercely. "Someone like you showed me what real strength looks like. Someone like you loves his daughters with his whole heart and teaches them that kindness matters more than wealth. If anything, I'm the one who doesn't deserve you." He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of promise. Behind them, Lily's voice broke the moment. "Daddy, are you kissing Amelia? Does that mean she's going to be Grace's and my mom?" They broke apart, both laughing at being caught by a precocious 7-year-old. Grace was awake now, looking between the adults with curious eyes, not understanding but sensing the happiness in the room. "Would you like that, sweetheart?" Adam asked Lily, kneeling down to her level. "Would you like Amelia to be part of our family officially?" Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Yes. Then we can all live together, and I can see Grace every day, and we can be a real family." Amelia knelt down too, eye level with Lily. "I need you to understand something, Lily. I'll never replace your mother. Sarah will always be your mum, and she'll always be special. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be someone who loves you and takes care of you and is there for you. Not as a replacement, but as someone new." Lily threw her arms around Amelia's neck, hugging her tight. "You already are. You saved my daddy from being sad all the time. You gave me a baby sister. You're already part of our family." 6 months later, they got married in a small ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Lily was the flower girl, carrying Grace down the aisle in a wagon decorated with flowers. Dr. Harrington and Dr. Morrison attended, witnesses to the impossible journey that had brought them all together. Marcus gave a toast about how Amelia had finally learned that some things couldn't be calculated or controlled, only experienced. Adam's Station 51 family filled half the guest list, proud of their brother who had found happiness against all odds. They merged their lives slowly, carefully, with respect for each other's needs and boundaries. They split time between Amelia's penthouse and a new house they bought together in Lincoln Park, big enough for 2 daughters and whatever future might bring. Adam continued working as a paramedic, refusing Amelia's offers to retire or work for her company, because saving lives was who he was, and she loved him for it. Amelia continued running Gutierrez Biotech, but she learned to delegate more, to value time with her family over constantly expanding the empire. Lily thrived, healthy and happy, her heart strong thanks to Dr. Harrington's skill and Amelia's money and Adam's desperate love. Grace grew into a confident toddler, her premature start forgotten, beloved by 2 parents and a big sister who thought she hung the moon. On Grace's 3rd birthday, as they celebrated in their backyard with a party featuring way too many zoo animals and far too much cake, Adam found Amelia standing apart from the chaos, watching their daughters play with that soft smile she wore now, so different from the Ice Queen mask she'd hidden behind for so long. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I'm thinking about how different my life is from what I planned," she said softly. 3 years ago, I walked into a conference room planning to make a business transaction. I was going to buy genetic material and raise a child alone, and maintain complete control over every aspect of my life. She turned in his arms, looking up at him with those blue eyes that still took his breath away. "Instead, I got you. I got Lily. I got grace. I got chaos and mess and love and family and everything I didn't know I needed. I got a life that's completely out of my control and absolutely perfect." Adam kissed her forehead. "I was thinking about something similar. 3 years ago, I walked into your building planning to beg for money to save my daughter. I thought I was selling my soul, trading away my future for Lily's life. I thought I was giving up everything that mattered." He looked over at their daughters, Lily teaching Grace how to feed the plastic zoo animals cake, both of them laughing with pure joy. "Instead, I got everything: another daughter, a partner, a life beyond my wildest dreams. Turns out sometimes you have to lose yourself to find what you were always meant to be." Amelia smiled, that brilliant, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. "We're both terrible at planning, apparently. We should probably stop trying." "Agreed," Adam laughed. "Let's just see what happens next." What happened next was simple and extraordinary. They lived. They loved. They raised their daughters with all the messy, imperfect beauty that real families have. They fought sometimes, usually about parenting decisions or whose turn it was to handle the 3 a.m. nightmare. They laughed often at themselves and each other and the absurdity of their unlikely story. They built a life that no one could have predicted, that no amount of money could have bought, that no contract could have captured, and when people asked how they met, they always told the truth. Adam saved Amelia's daughter's life twice, and in return, Amelia saved his. Everything else was just details. Years later, when Grace was old enough to understand, they told her the full story. How she was born from an impossible deal made in desperation, how her mother had been an ice queen who didn't believe in love, how her father had sold his genetic material for his daughter's surgery, how an accident on the Kennedy Expressway had changed everything, how love had grown in the most unlikely soil, bloomed in the most unlikely hearts, created a family from what should have been just a transaction. Grace listened to the whole story, then looked at her parents with wisdom beyond her years. "So basically, I'm here because you both loved Lily so much that you were willing to do crazy things to save her." Adam and Amelia exchanged glances, then nodded. "Pretty much, yeah." Grace grinned, that perfect combination of both her parents' smiles. "Cool. Lily's the best big sister ever. Worth it." And in the end, that was the truth. All the complexity, all the moral grey areas, all the impossible choices and desperate bargains, it all boiled down to something simple. Love makes you do crazy things, and sometimes those crazy things turn out to be exactly right. The billionaire CEO who saved a single dad's dying daughter, thinking she would just take what she wanted and walk away, learned that some debts can only be repaid with love. The paramedic who sold his future child for his daughter's life learned that sometimes the worst choices lead to the best outcomes. And the two daughters, one saved by money and medicine, one created from a cold transaction that became warm love, grew up knowing that family isn't about how you start, but about what you build together. In the end, Amelia Gutierrez's greatest legacy wasn't her company or her money or her medical research. It was teaching herself and everyone around her that control was an illusion, that love was the strongest force in the universe, and that the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming.